We do pray.
In early 1862, a sword crafted by Thomas Griswold and Company was presented to Major General Sterling Price by the city of New Orleans for his victory at the Battle of Lexington in late September 1861. The sword was presented to the Museum of the Confederacy of Richmond, Virginia in 1898 by two of Price's sons. There it has remained on permanent display until it was returned to Missouri in September of 2000 for the reenactment of Price's March on Lexington during the fall of 1861.
He's fighting for his 92, his sword is buckled on.
The Museum of the Confederacy, which is a national civil war museum that's been around since 1896, was approached by Mark White, Sons of Confederate Veterans in the town of Lexington, to bring Sterling Price's sword in a way back home, and we are very pleased to be able to do that. The sword's been in our collection since 1898, so we've had the sword for a long, long time. At the time the sword was made, it was considered one of the finest Confederate officer swords in the country, certainly in the Confederacy, and cost about $1,000 back in 1861. The ladies in New Orleans had the sword manufactured, and they raised money at $1 contribution a person to come up with a $1,000 purchasing price for the sword. The sword's unique in that it incorporates all the state motifs of not only the state of Missouri, but also the state of Louisiana. So it's a very unique piece, and probably one of the finest presentation swords from the war, both sides, that's still around today. The sword is very unique in that it incorporates two state motifs. The scabbard is made of gold and is meant and designed to look like stalks of corn and sugar cane. The sword itself incorporates the state seal of the state of Missouri, and it also on its pommel at the very end has a pelican feeding its young, which is part of the motif of the state seal of Louisiana. Both states being agricultural, certainly the crops of tobacco and hemp and cotton and grapes are all incorporated on the sword blade itself. Now the sword is inscribed with a motto in Latin, which means by the means of the sword and by the means of courage through difficulties to heaven or to death. So it was a very symbolic weapon. The handle is made of ivory, which resembles a corn cob. So it's very much a tie of the agrarian society of Louisiana to the agrarian society of Missouri.
General Sterling Price's victory at Lexington actually began several weeks before the final siege of the federal fortress on September 20, 1861. The Missouri State Guard had retarded federal plans for overrunning and subjugating Missouri. The recent federal defeat by the combined forces of Price and Confederate General McCulloch at Oak Hills or Wilson's Creek had proven that the fight for Missouri was far from over. Confident that the tide had turned and ever optimistic that Missourians were waiting to join him by the thousands, Price met with McCulloch and proposed a plan to move rapidly into the interior of the state. He predicted that an offensive action would motivate new volunteers to flock to his banner, and his presence also would undermine the Unionists' efforts to legitimize their provisional state government in Jefferson City. Price's objective was the prosperous Missouri River town of Lexington, located in the midst of the hemp-growing region of the state. The area, known for its pro-Southern sentiments, would serve as a strategic base for future operations in spite of the presence of an unwanted Union garrison. The capture of Lexington would provide a means for guardsmen from northern Missouri, previously cut off by the federal blockade, to cross the river and join Price's army. One other factor motivated Price to single out Lexington. More than $900,000 sat in a Lexington bank, of which $37,000 had been appropriated to the Missouri State Guard by the legislature. Newly appointed commander of all federal forces in Missouri, Major General John C. Fremont, had begun impounding bank money statewide to prevent it from falling into the hands of Price and the pro-Southern government of Missouri. McCulloch decided to return to Arkansas to defend the state and surrounding Indian territory. Price, however, was in command of an independent army, and once he had made up his mind, McCulloch could not stop him. On August 25, 1861, Price led 6,000 veteran state guardsmen out of Springfield, bound for Lexington and the liberation of Missouri. On September 7th, Price made a detour left from his trek to the Missouri River and engaged the Federals approximately 15 miles east of Fort Scott at Drywood Creek.
After chastising the marauding armies of Lane and Montgomery and driving them out of the state, and after compelling them to abandon Fort Scott, as detailed in my last report, I continued my march towards this point, with an army increasing hourly in numbers and in enthusiasm.
On September 9, Colonel James A. Mulligan and his Irish Brigade, the 23rd Illinois Infantry, arrived in the vicinity of Lexington. As senior colonel, he took charge of the garrison that consisted of 3,500 men, 7 6-pound guns, and 2 mortars. Mulligan said after the war,
"Indeed, the trouble was not so much in getting into Lexington as in getting out."
On September 10, Price and his army approached Warrensburg. A detachment of federal troops and home guards under the command of Colonel Everett Peabody had been dispatched from Lexington to Warrensburg for the purpose of seizing the bank funds and arresting pro-Southern citizens in Johnson County. Price was determined to press forward so as to surprise the enemy, if possible, at Warrensburg. Peabody reported emphatically that the rebels were approaching. The Federals were now in full retreat, and the State Guard occupied the town uncontested. Claiborne Fox Jackson, Missouri's exiled governor in the saddle, had returned to the state from his official visit with the Confederate government in Richmond, Virginia. Jackson caught up with Price and his men at Warrensburg. There he made what was called a violent secession speech to the large crowd gathered, assuring them that they had but to make an effort for their righteous cause, and that they must triumph over Lincoln's cowardly hirelings. Together, Governor Jackson and General Price led their large cavalry escort north to Lexington. At noon on the 11th, Mulligan put companies from each command at work constructing a system of entrenchments around the Masonic College over an area of approximately 15 acres. The strongest works, consisting of earthen ramparts more than 10 feet high, were thrown up around the college building. Amidst all the activity of fortifying the position, Mulligan and his staff quietly buried the money taken from the Farmers' Bank, as well as the state seal and archives, under his tent. With the aid of a telescope, Colonel Mulligan watched the fight at Hockaday Farm. He could see General Price upon his horse, riding up and down and through the lines, urging his men on.
I think we put a pretty heavy sting in them back there. Got reports back though, they're right on our rear flank, our rear bringing up.
They'll hold them back.
let the first company back there, so they should be able to hold them back pretty well with the engineers coming up and closing this path area.
Spots in Manly and Wickham go with Major. You two will save me.
All right, I have a squad down here that'll be holding them back. The last one through will be a sergeant.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's going to happen is as soon as that last squad comes through, we're going to pull these crowds. All right, hold. About face. Ready. Aim. Fire. Load. Fall back. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Get up. Let's go.
Go for it. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Let's go. Close up. Get out of the way. Right here.
Steering weapon.
Hi, boys.
That's it. Stay gives to him.
Mulligan sent in one of his own Illinois companies along with 2 from Peabody's regiment, as well as 2 6-pounders, to push the state guardsmen back across a covered bridge which was set on fire. The state guard detoured to the west, attacking up a road that led directly to the Machpelah Cemetery. Marshall's 1st Illinois Cavalry and 6 companies of Peabody's 13th Missouri Infantry met the Southern advance in the graveyard, and as Mulligan later said,
and the fight raged furiously over the dead.
By 4 in the afternoon, Price had gotten the artillery of Captains Hiram Bledsoe and Henry Gabor within range of the Federal entrenchments. The Missourians were mostly supplied with solid shot and canister. Small arms fire ceased as the affair transformed into an artillery duel. The exchange ended as darkness set in. Finding his army short of ammunition and his ordnance wagons still miles behind, Price withdrew to the fairgrounds and set up camp. The word circulated through the countryside that Old Pap, the Guard's nickname for General Price, had trapped the Yankees. Scores of recruits flocked to the banner of Missouri, each with his own reason for coming. Price's triumphant entry into the town had transformed Lexington into a large festival. People came from miles around, as one spectator said, to see the foreigners get whipped. The air was filled with music and patriotic fervor.
I've taken up arms, and you all know who I am, Old Cave Dyer. And you all know that I'm a farmer here. And you all know that I'm a citizen of Lexington, right here in Lafayette County, Missouri. And there ain't no better place. But what have I said? Yes, I have said that I am here to run all the Dutchmen and the Irish out of this state because they ain't supposed to be here. Now, I got to tell y'all that I wasn't at Oak Hill last month when we so soundly whooped them Yankee boys down there. I wish I'd have been there. I was in there in spirit and with my heart. There was a lot of good Missourians down there. And there were Texicans down there. And there were Arkansas boys down there. And boys from Louisiana. But you know who's here today? Good old Missouri boys. And all you fellow citizens and friends of mine who know me so well can honestly say that we need to end the war right here.
Pickets and snipers continued their deadly game of nerves while small groups of blue-clad soldiers crept out of the earthworks in search of food and water. That evening Price sent in a peace proposal. An emissary offered the Yankees an opportunity to evacuate the garrison with the honors of war if they would leave Missouri and not return. Mulligan swiftly replied, "The Irish Brigade makes no compromises and never surrenders." After continual skirmishing, Price's Missouri State Guardsmen drove the Federals from the adjoining ridges and hollows. From their newly secured positions, the Missourians could fire on any portion of the Union entrenchments. The warmer weather of the past 3 days created a new problem for Mulligan's men. They were now completely cut off from a nearby freshwater spring.
Tim, I think we're going to have to be very sparing of our water. I heard reports that the cavalry is sneaking water to their horses, and I understand that is the humane thing to do, but it cannot be tolerated, and we must stop that. The men are going to start suffering next. At the same time, I think our bastions near the Anderson house probably need strengthening. We need to get the men working on that. I want to keep them busy so they don't get demoralized. Now my Irish lads are going to stick it out. I think we have no problems. I'm a little worried about the home guard and that Major Becker. We're going to have to watch him. I'm not sure he's reliable. Let's watch him closely. At the same time, I think we have enough food to last a while. Fremont should be coming. If we can just hang on for a few more days, I think we're going to pull a victory out of this yet, and I firmly believe it. At the same time, things are desperate. We're in desperate straits, and we must hang on and fight as fiercely as we can. I think we may want to see if we can get the musicians to play frequently, keep them in spirits up, and perhaps it'll rain. If it rains, we're going to have to put up some tarps and use some tents to catch water in the barrels, and we'll do the best we can.
A bright sky and dry weather returned to Lexington on Wednesday. While Mulligan's headquarters was passing the word to conserve what little water remained, Price was notified that Harris's division from northern Missouri was approaching. Over the next few hours, more than 4,000 men in 2 columns, representing not only Harris's but also parts of 2 other divisions, arrived with supply trains and additional artillery. Price's brigadier generals marched their divisions into positions on 3 sides of the Union garrison. Mulligan was also aware of these troop movements and said in a later interview, "They came as one dark, moving mass, their polished guns gleaming in the sunlight, their banners waving, and their drums beating. Everywhere, as far as we could see, were men, 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 approaching grandly." Once Price had his army in position, he sent an ultimatum for surrender to the Federals. Again, Mulligan answered with a challenge. "If you want us, you must take us." To answer Mulligan's challenge, General Price ordered the guardsmen to open fire. The constant concussion of cannon fire, the incessant rattle of musketry, and the billowing clouds of sulfur-laden smoke blended to produce a 9-hour symphony. Oliver Anderson's spacious home stood west of the Union entrenchments, about 100 yards outside the Federal line. The Yankees had been using it as a hospital. Its thick brick walls and adjacent cistern also made it suitable as a platform for Federal snipers.
I want self-will. Give me some self-will. Not your small thing. I need a ladder over here. Just wipe it off. Just wipe it off. Give it up here. Yeah. Give me the tourniquet. Give me the tourniquet on here. Put it up here on it. Get him through it.
Colonel Reeves, in order to cut off the enemy's means of escape, proceeded down the bank of the river to capture a steamboat which was lying just under their guns. Just at this moment, a heavy fire was opened upon him from Colonel Anderson's large dwelling house upon the summit of the bluffs, which the enemy were occupying as a hospital and upon which a white flag was flying. Several companies of General Harris's command and the gallant soldiers of the 4th Division, who have won upon so many battlefields the proud distinction of always being among the bravest of the brave, immediately rushed upon and took the place.
Meanwhile, the divisions of General McBride and Harris stormed the bluffs immediately north of the Anderson home, routing the Federal Home Guard. There were 120 sick and wounded men in the house, attended by a surgeon and a chaplain. Mulligan was furious. He ordered one of the companies of the Irish Brigade, the Montgomery Guard, to mount the counterattack. Mulligan pulled their captain aside and cried, "Teach the damned vagabonds what it means to charge a hospital and abuse wounded men and insult a priest."
Come here to load and hold. Hey, kill him.
Among those making the gallant charge on the Anderson house was 20-year-old musician George H. Palmer of Company G, 1st Illinois Cavalry. Palmer's diary and detailed drawings of the battlefield provide a unique perspective on this controversial event.
On the 7th step right there, you'll notice a bullet hole. We're actually going to see a lot of battle damage going up the staircase throughout here. The reason for this mainly being that the staircase was a main focal point in the battle over the house. Because of the necessity of keeping these landings. These landings that you see right here were a great place to position your snipers. For example, when the Missouri State Guard took control of the house, they immediately went up to the 2nd floor, positioning snipers all along the staircase, particularly on that 3rd floor landing. The idea there was that you have a pretty good shot at the men down here. However, exactly, they have to step out from under here to get a shot at you. The problem is, anyone who steps up on the staircase to take back that 2nd floor from you immediately becomes a sitting duck. So as the Union poured in here, they sort of stopped, were deadlocked, because no one wanted to climb the staircase. No one wanted to take the risk of it. Until finally the bugler of the troop, George Palmer, jumped up on the 2nd step and proclaimed, "I will lead if you will follow." A group of about 6 men went ahead and followed him up the staircase here. Reaching the 2nd floor, they immediately started to storm through the rooms. George Palmer hit the room open with the butt of his gun, came into it. Now, there were 3 guns pointed at him from this room. However, the men in here saw the other men behind George Palmer and immediately surrendered. So, he captured all of the Southern forces on the 2nd floor, which amounted to 5 men ultimately. Now, George Palmer emerged from this room, taking all of the prisoners' arms away from him. As he came down the staircase, he pleaded with the men waiting down here. While George Palmer pleaded with them to follow orders and just take these men as prisoners, they instead decided that they were going to mount a full execution against them. George marched his prisoners down toward this 2nd flight of stairs that we see here. These men down here let fire upon him. Now, according to the 5th prisoner in the bunch, who was still up here as his 4 comrades were right down here, the 4 men were immediately executed as they hit the 2nd flight, their bodies rolling down to the bottom of the staircase. 5th man was named W.H. Mansour. Mansour leapt over the railing right there, landing on the floor and breaking his ankle. Now, he was about to get executed by these men as well, but he limped away into the parlor right there. In the parlor, he met with 2 more armed men who were about to fire on him as well until an officer came in, according to Mansour's reports later, and stopped them. The officer then led him out of the house and he limped his way back to Confederate lines. Eventually, control was established again here in the house, even though chaos had broken loose for quite a while there. And George Palmer was later awarded the Medal of Honor for his charge on the staircase.
On March 10, 1896, Palmer was presented the highest military award issued by the United States of America, the Medal of Honor. The award, originally commissioned by Congress in 1862, has been presented to a little over 3,400 individuals. 1,520 were awarded for the Civil War. Palmer's citation reads as follows:
George H. Palmer, musician, 1st Illinois Cavalry, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty in action at Lexington, Missouri, 20 September 1861. Volunteered to fight in the trenches and also led a charge which resulted in the recapture of a Union hospital together with Confederate sharpshooters then occupying the same.
Palmer was captured and paroled at the conclusion of the battle and started the long journey back to Quincy, Illinois, along with his Federal comrades. Just before the final white flag was raised, George Palmer was able to recover a flag to prevent it from being captured. His diary reads as follows.
The firing ceased, and the enemy at once took advantage of this and came out from behind their hemp bales and filed right into our camp. A flag was set on the parapet in front of me and opposite the hemp bales. Seeing that we were done for when the Rebs came near our line, I seized this flag, tore it from the staff, and secreted it in my boot. I brought it away with me.
2 notes now accompany what Palmer wrote after the war. One reads, "The flag that won the Medal of Honor, Lexington, Missouri, Civil War, 1861. The other, burn it up. No one could ever love it as I have. E.P." The battle honors of Lexington were added to the flag as authorized by a joint resolution of the United States Congress by Illinois Congressman Isaac N. Arnold on December 20, 1861. The medal, the flag, notes, and the image of George Palmer were brought to the Lexington campaign reenactment by his great-great-grandson, David A. Luff of Ventura, California. These unique relics were displayed during the event in a specially designed case along with the sword of Colonel James Mulligan. This was Mr. Luff's first trip to Lexington and to the historic site.
The flag and the Medal of Honor were, the medal was issued to my great-great-grandfather, George Henry Palmer. He was 20 years old here at the battle. The medal wasn't issued until 1896 when he was about 56 years old. So he didn't really enjoy the benefits of the medal, but I'm sure that he was quite honored to receive that award. There's 2 sides to history, and I have no doubt that there were many heroes at the Battle of Lexington. And if anything, I'd like people to understand that these artifacts, they are our history. They are very valuable. They're very delicate. They need to be preserved, and it's just it's really a pleasure and an honor to be able to share it with the reenactors and the citizens who are enjoying this weekend.
The heat and dust of Wednesday continued unabated on Thursday, September 19. The heavy artillery fire that had accompanied much of yesterday's fighting now had ceased, but everywhere it left unmistakable marks of its power. Indeed, one of the cannonballs, possibly from Bledsoe's battery, had sailed far over the fort and straight into a column on the county courthouse. The whole was never repaired in deference to the town's claim to history. This new day was given over to sharpshooters, men who obviously took their work seriously. The Federals were fair game for anyone with a firearm. One of the handful of journalists witnessing the battle noted an old man dressed in buckskin and, in his own words, said, and armed with a long rifle, he used to go up to the works every morning about 7 o'clock, carrying his dinner in a tin pail. Taking a good position, he banged away at the Federals till noon, then rested an hour, ate his dinner, after which he resumed operations till 6 p.m., when he returned home to supper and a night's sleep. This was the day that Mulligan's officer had told the men to expect reinforcements. Their prediction was not based on hard information as much as it was on intuition and hope. General Sterling Price had learned from an intercepted message that 1,100 Federal soldiers under General Samuel Sturgis's command were advancing towards Lexington. Price dispatched General Parsons with 3,000 men to the north side of the river to stop them. Sturgis realized that he was marching into a trap and led his column back to Richmond, Missouri, then on to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. At 8 p.m., Price sent in a flag of truce demanding Mulligan's surrender and expressing a willingness to evacuate the wounded. Mulligan acquiesced only to the evacuation. Over at the Anderson house, a local doctor removed 122 sick and wounded Federals into town as arranged by the commanders. At Price's headquarters, some of the staff officers urged the commanding general to order an assault of the works under the blanket of darkness. But Price did not intend to give the Yankees what they wanted most, a chance to kill his men by the hundreds in a heroic last stand. His casualties were relatively light thus far, and he wanted to keep it that way. There is no use in killing the boys now, he told his staff. Poor fellows. They may, some of them at least, be killed soon enough.
College up there, the Masonic College, that they've had at least 2 weeks, maybe longer, to fortify this, and that their abatements and those things are heavily fortified. My opinion is, gentlemen, we cannot ask our men to make another Bloody Hill charge. Time is of the essence because my intelligence tells me that Fremont is rumored to be coming up the river with reinforcements on boats, and that there also might be some regulars, not bandbox boys and militia coming out of Kansas, but regulars to reinforce that Irish monkey that we have cornered up here in these entrenchments. So I believe, gentlemen, we need to carry those works as soon as possible.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
These men have given more than we have dared or should asked. So we must think of them, but we must carry those works. I think we should look to our history. And by God, Andy Jackson defeated the British in New Orleans in 1815 with cotton bales. Why can't we do that here with hemp bales?
That would have quite a bit of symbolic significance, wouldn't it?
Well, I believe so. But I've looked at the situation. I've looked at the intelligence. And my proposal is, gentlemen, that down there on the wharf, Mr. Anderson is one of those other personalities that has paid dearly for his beliefs, been run out of the state, has approximately 200 hemp bales, anywhere from 3 to 5 feet in diameter. My proposal is that to keep from setting these hemp on fire as we use them for breastworks, that we soak them, sink them in the river bottom, pull them up, distribute these, and where the Federals have dug themselves in with fixed fortifications, ours will become mobile. The weight of the hemp will be extreme, but gentlemen, it'll also absorb shot and shell and will not set on fire. And we roll them up the hills, gentlemen, using them for fortifications, and see if we can't break that monkey's back.
Using a major Missouri product to literally roll over these invaders, General, that's brilliant. If I might, I think I could make political hay of that situation.
Very good, Governor, very good.
As Commander-in-Chief, General, I think we're ready, and I think you have an excellent plan. I would suggest that we begin soon to think about our next step and assume that this one is in the bag.
Well, nothing is ever certain, gentlemen. We'll place our faith in the hands of God and the troops that we lead, but I think this is the most sound plan that we have.
Once we take the state funds back, if we're able to recapture that and they haven't destroyed it or moved it somewhere else, we'll have money to arm the troops and put them in better condition.
It's extraordinary that that Irish demon, Mulligan, who has these fortifications, did take, $991,000 from the bank?
Yes.
And took it with him on the hill.
Just a common criminal like the rest of them.
Well, that's why we cannot allow these people to escape at all.
Freebooter and banditti, I think, is the way they'll be recorded in history.
Yeah.
They have to do.
Most definitely. Well, gentlemen, if we have no further questions or input on this meeting, gentlemen, see the disposition of your troops and let's put things in motion. I need 7 sets of orders.
General, I have one request.
Sir.
At the end of this conflict, in which I've confident that we will be successful, I would like to address not only our own troops as Commander-in-Chief, but I would like to address those people, those Irishmen from Chicago and those Germans from St. Louis who decide that they are going to compromise the elected governor of Missouri and compromise the Army of the state of Missouri. I would like to address them and make a few appropriate comments, and I promise you, gentlemen, I won't offend your sensibilities, but I can't make that promise in regard to them. But I think that might be an appropriate thing to do, General, when we're finished, if you would have them
The
lined
field
up.
is yours, sir, because you are the duly elected and the
There
choice
is
of
a
the
bit to
people.
say in these days.
We shall put him back in office,
And a
gentlemen.
brief time to do it.
Here, sir.
Governor.
On the morning of the 20th instant, I caused a number of hemp bales to be transported to the river heights, where movable breastworks were speedily constructed out of them by Generals Harris and McBride, and Colonel Reeves and Major Winston and their respective commands. Captain Kelly's battery was ordered at the same time to the position occupied by General Harris's forces, and quickly opened a very effective fire under the direction of its gallant captain upon the enemy.
Send the Missourians to hell! Fire! Go, go! Call it through!
All along the western slope, the hemp bale line inched forward in a slow, deliberate advance. Every Missouri battery poured its brutal shot into the fort, while 10,000 rifles sprayed the air with instant death for the bold and careless. The joking, frivolous, easy mood of the past several days had given way to fierce determination. The end was near. At 1 o'clock, another assault came hurtling against Becker's home guard position on the line. Major Becker, on his own accord, raised a white flag and a ramrod to put an end to the melee. The firing eventually ceased and confusion reigned, all down the siege line. Price dispatched a courier to Mulligan with a note asking for an explanation. Mulligan turned the note over and wrote, "General, I hardly know, unless you have surrendered." Price assured his adversary that this was not the case and ordered his men to continue the assault. Price reports that just after 2 o'clock and 52 hours of continuous firing, at least 2 white flags were seen along the Federal line. He immediately ordered a cessation of firing and sent forward his adjutant, Colonel Thomas L. Sneed, to meet with Mulligan's emissary. When asked what the terms for surrender were, Price made it clear when he said, "Unconditional, by God, and 5 minutes to decide in."
Take us to Mulligan. General Price, you have the advantage, sir. What terms are we offered?
All right, sir. Unconditional. Your men will be paroled, but sir, it has to be unconditional. We must leave our soil here. We will parole your men, but you must never.
After some delay, Mulligan agreed that the Federals would lay down their arms and surrender themselves as prisoners of war. Just after the capitulation was being carried out, some of Mulligan's Irish brigade made one last act of defiance by refusing to surrender their arms and flag.
Thank you, sir. Sir,
Very good.
They're fixing bayonets over there.
The state guardsmen, enraged by this development, threatened to resume firing. The Irish Federals then formed a hollow square, stacked arms, furled the flag, and were paroled with the others.
Tell them that the bayonet will bring them to their senses. I'm offering them honorable
General Price announced that he would release the prisoners on their promise not to take up arms against Missouri or the Confederacy. Upon completion of the proper arrangements, the Federals were lined up and addressed by Governor Jackson. On Sunday, September 17, in the year 2000, a monument to the brave men of the Missouri State Guard was dedicated at the Battle of Lexington historic site. The monument was acquired and installed through the cooperation of the Missouri Department of Natural Resources and the Missouri Division Sons of Confederate Veterans.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out to help us dedicate this monument to the Missouri State Guard. My name is Gene Dressel. I'm the Missouri Division Commander of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. And I think it's very appropriate that we should gather here today to dedicate this monument honoring the men of the Missouri State Guard, many of whom gave up their very lives on this hallowed ground. But we know that their memory is not consecrated by granite markers nor by memorial services such as this. Their memory is sanctified by our daily perpetuation of the ideals by which they lived and by our living the way of life that they fought to preserve. These were everyday men from all walks of life, bound together by a common heritage and a conviction to defend the principles that they held dear, the very principles that were the foundation of the Constitution that had held our nation together for so long. They were not fighting for wealth or glory. They fought only to preserve the sovereignty of the state of Missouri that was guaranteed to them by that Constitution, and they fought to protect their homes and their families from invasion and destruction.
We of the Missouri Division of State Parks, Department of Natural Resources, are very honored and privileged to be the guardians of this battlefield and to have here a site that all Missourians and others can come to and reacquaint themselves with the great events that happened here more than a century ago. We have the trenches and breastworks preserved, the post hospital, we have the museum. We are able to more fully explain the battle, and now we are very grateful that the Sons of Confederate Veterans have made available this monument that everyone who comes here may see and read of the time when the governor of Missouri called on the state's sons to defend the state, and by the thousands they responded. And we're very pleased to receive the monument and hope that it will be an inspiration to the thousands of people who come to visit the battlefield every year.
I bring you Southern greetings on behalf of Commander General Albert Jones, Jr. and the entire Army of the Department of Mississippi, which is a military order of the Stars and Bars. We are also all members of the Confederate Veterans.
Well, I feel very privileged to be part of this, and first of all, I thank all the guests and the people who are here, but especially I thank the reenactors, because I think you do a real service to those of us who have heritage that goes back to the Civil War. And this is a historic occasion for several reasons. I believe that probably it's the first time in 100 years at least that the general's pistol and the presentation sword have resided together for people to look at. And I'm really just happy to be part of it, and thank you for having me.
The Missouri State Guard was an unusual, if not unique, military organization during the Civil War. It was created as the legal militia of the state, and although it acted in concert and in formal and formal alliances with the Confederate Army, it always steadfastly maintained its own separate state organization. The Guard came into existence out of the tragedy that we call the Camp Jackson Massacre in St. Louis. After that incident, where civilian blood was shed in great quantities, the Missouri legislature enacted a law creating the Missouri State Guard. For those who served in the Missouri State Guard, I'm sure that they ever had memories of the time when they followed old Pat Price and the blue flag of Missouri in 1861 and 1862, and a rather remarkable little army that one of the veterans called the Patriot Army of Missouri, and which we call the Missouri State Guard. And always remember, it was all for Missouri. Thank you.
At this time, we'd like to unveil the monument that Mark White and so many other people have worked so hard to get put up here, and I do thank everybody that's been involved with this, the DNR, all of the, Colonel Beck's brigade, everybody that's helped with this thing. We appreciate it. Thank you. This basically concludes our ceremony. I would like to have a brief closing prayer. If we could uncover, please. Let us pray. Oh God, we know that these gallant men of the Missouri State Guard are safe in the bosom of thy eternal love. The maimed have been healed. They are whole in body and spirit and abide with you in the kingdom of heaven. Lord, we pray that you will watch over your children gathered here today. Lead us in the ways of forgiveness, that we, your servants, may someday be worthy of your kingdom. Help us to keep your commandments and to guide us in the path of truth and righteousness. In Jesus' name we ask these things. Amen.
Elliott Scouts, shoulder, arms, about, face. Fire by company. Ready. Aim. Fire! Shoulder, arms! Gentlemen, 3 cheers for Missouri!
The sword, the medal, and the monument. 3 items represent the principles of courage, honor, and duty. They are permanent reminders of the ideals that brave men fought and died for during the war between the states, ideals that Americans have sacrificed to preserve throughout the years since the Civil War at places such as San Juan Hill, the Argonne Forest, the beaches at Normandy, Iwo Jima, the cold winters of Korea, the jungles of Vietnam, and the sand dunes of Desert Storm.
at the same time, I'm selling T-shirts and hats for the event. You must have one.
Yes, yeah, this is how we support the hobby.
Exactly. This is, it's nothing about arena. It's about T-shirts and hats.
The Irish Brigade makes no compromises and never surrenders. You hear that, you old son of a gun? Now get out of my kitchen. You teach those meanies what it means to charge a hospital and abuse those wounded men, and you also insulted a priest. Now you mean little son of a bitch.
No having fun while reading scripts.
You're a politician. I know that you're loaded all the time.
That's the way to do it. Last one. Okay, Lord, I quit.
And by our living the way of life that they fought to preserve. These were everyday.
Excellent. Let's end this thing.
I think we shall.
Very good, Bill.
Sir, good to see you. Is there anything I can do for you, sir?
No, sir. Let's go get those rebels.
1,520 were awarded during the Civil War, or for the Civil War, or after the Civil War, or who gives a it was the war between the states. Let's see.
Hope that ain't your job, singing.
Congratulations. Excellent job.
Good job, guys. Good job.
Get that one back here. Kill one.
Good job.
Good job.
Keep going. Played Lincoln's favorite song.
Where you at?
It's my Steve's hand.
Sean, how you doing? You did? Well, that's good. Par for the course.
Thank you, sir. John, good to see you. See you later. Take care, boys. Have a safe trip home. Take it easy, Bill. We'll see you, gentlemen. Take care. Have a safe trip home. Chris, Michael, good to see you, buddy. Good to see you, too. Bill, over here, boys.
Coming through.
3 cheers for the Federals! Hip, hip! Hooray! Hip, hip! Hooray! Hip, hip! Hooray! Look at battalion, 3 cheers for the Confederacy! Hip, hip! Hoorah! Hoorah! Hoorah!
Okay, Shackelford's overall commander, he says nothing but dogs, okay? Wind chill that night's 4 degrees, okay? So we're all sitting there, and we're trying to get in the fire. I mean, we were standing with our shoes in the fire. We're still cold, okay? Me and Dave Morgan, remember Dave Morgan? Okay? Meanwhile, down in the valley, you see the huge road. Probably had 15,000 people this reenactment, okay? Look down the valley, you see this burning civil, okay? Started, woof, it's gone. And see all these, we go, oh, a druid ritual, because look, they're dancing around a burning tree. You see all these rebel things, and that thing burns at crisp. So then morning comes, and we're all, I mean, I think I slept maybe 10 minutes. I mean, you know. So we get up, and the ambulance pulls the camp. We're like, and they pull this guy out of the tent. He's stiff, okay? We're like, oh, God, the rumor went around, he froze to death, right? Okay. So they're like, oh, my God, he froze to death. Well, come to find out, the guy got up and went to the bathroom, came back, had a heart attack, massive coronary, goes boom, face down in his tent, right? As he goes in, his part's seeing him, he's sleeping, right? So by morning, he's flat cold, okay? So then they're carrying him out, we're all sitting there going, man, that's really too bad. And Ben's like, you think he needs that blanket? There's like, you think he's got gloves? It's like, that was great.
My God, he did it right.
Jimmy, you want to get that shoulder too over that point, correct? I don't know if you get the mark or the general.
Company, halt! Front! Forward! March! Company, halt! Speak. Got your cup.
Company, Captain. Right about. Face. Forward. March.
Sector 6 Missouri. Ready! Aim! Elevate. Fire! Shoulder. Arm. Without doubling. Right. Face.
There is no better, and none of us know when that final curtain will rise on all of us, gentlemen. Take a good look at your comrades there, because that's truly what they are, comrades in arms. Yesterday, we performed as comrades. This morning also. Gentlemen, God bless each and every one of you, and I truly mean that from my heart.